What makes Scott different is his focus on mastering not just money, but consciousness, showing leaders how stillness, spiritual discipline, and emotional mastery create real power, wealth, and freedom.
There's only two things that are ever happening, that there's your thoughts and your emotions, and from the product of your thoughts and emotion is whatever you're going to do to act. And all you really have to do to be able to optimize and change everything in your life to have it be exactly the way that you want it to be is learn how to control your thoughts and emotions. The results of that were 10 times or 100 times better than I ever would have achieved had I constantly been chasing a bunch of things driven from the fear. It's like eliminating the static from the television. And once you can see the picture clearly, everything becomes really simple.
Welcome to today's episode of Free to Lead, Journeys of Leaders driven by passion, inspired by purpose. And my guest today is Scott Royal Smith. He's a multi-million-dollar attorney, real estate investor, and founder of Royal Legal Solutions and Royal Life. For over 15 years, he's helped thousands of high-income investors protect their assets, build wealth, and unlock their highest potential. Now, what makes Scott different is his focus on mastering not just money, but consciousness, showing leaders how stillness, spiritual discipline, and emotional mastery create real power, wealth, and freedom. Scott, welcome to Free to Lead.
Great to be here with you, Mo.
All right, great. Well, I mean, it's a glowing resume in America, right? I've got to think, because we call it a CV in America. It's a resume, right? Give us a bit of a backstory. Where did you start out? How did you end up, running? I don't know, how many companies is it? 2, 3 now?
Yeah, multiple.
Right.
So my journey is, I was raised by a single mother, pushing lawnmowers as a kid. And I was always very interested in how do you become wealthy? Because it seemed like wealthy people had more of their stuff together. Life seemed to be better if you had a bunch of money. So I went to law school. I bought a transmission and auto repair shop while I was in law school. I flipped that business in the building to graduate from law school without debt. Worked as an attorney while continuing to invest in real estate. Became financially free, like using the Robert Kiyosaki kind of method, and then realized that I needed to build my own family office to actually become free, that it wasn't just money. You actually need to worry about tax, and you need attorneys to watch over all of your asset protection and estate planning. And then you had to create a deal pipeline to always churn your investments. And then I said, man, now I got it. I did the whole thing. I became an attorney. I was an entrepreneur. I built my own family office. You can't get more free than this. And then as I was traveling around the world, I said, is this all there is? Is this it? This is what I do now? And this is where I had to step into a new place of actually become the leader in my own life instead of just a leader of other people. And becoming a self-leader was actually the biggest thing that made all of the difference to me and how to get to a fully optimized lifestyle.
Yeah, we were talking before. I used to lead a program, the forum, and I could meet the richest people in the world, some of the richest people in the world, very, very successful people, but they're so driven. When you can get back to what that's all about, what's driving you, unlock that for people. Then all of a sudden there's a whole other world, right? There's a whole other world available for people where it's fulfilling and it's satisfying. It sounds like you found that place.
I think the place is actually available to everyone. And the way I found it is I went through landmark forums, I went through insight seminars. I'm
Yep.
familiar with those bodies of work of what you learn in those weeks and weekends. What I found is like through that process, anybody's been in that process, as you go higher and higher inside of that process, what actually happens is more and more things end up getting stripped away, right? What becomes true becomes more simple. And then that turned into my guiding light. I was like, how simple can things really get? So the simplest I've been able to discover through my own journeys, traveling around the world, studying with shamans in the Amazonian rainforest for months at a time on dietas, all the way to studying in ashrams with monks and people from yogic lineages that trace back hundreds, if not thousands of years,
Yes.
is that everything drives down to one really simple concept. And I can't get it more simple than this in my life experience, which is there's only two things that are ever happening, that there's your thoughts and your emotions. And from the product of your thoughts and emotion is whatever you're going to do to act. And all you really have to do to be able to optimize and change everything in your life to have it be exactly the way that you want it to be is learn how to control your thoughts and emotions. And there couldn't be anything that's more fundamental than that, especially when it comes into self-leadership or leadership of others. I think is actually it's an information problem. because Will is who Will is, and I see Will through my own lens of Will.
Hmm.
So my information now is actually distorted of what's really going on with Will. In the same way that that distortion is happening because my own thoughts and emotions about Will, not observing who Will is in this moment, the same thing actually happens to myself. My own thoughts and my own emotions about my own things that are happening are distorting my own reality of
Yeah.
what's really true for me. And if I can get that to quiet down, it's like eliminating the static from the television. And once you can see the picture clearly, everything becomes really simple. It's only really difficult when everything is confusing and cloudy. And
Yes.
that confusion only exists when the thoughts and the emotions are disturbed.
Yeah.
Is that too much for 3 minutes into a podcast?
I know, I know. I'm following it everywhere. I mean, I've just written my book. I was telling you, Free to Lead. I mean, this is like music to the choir, whatever you say, right? I mean, it really is getting all the way to just what's happening, you know?
Yeah, what's really happening. What I noticed in my own life, focusing on just what I would call like the prime mover about being able to control your thoughts and emotions, is that everything shifted. First, it was really subtle,
Mm.
but then the results actually became extremely profound. So, for example, one of the things that shifted for me is I said, well, when I got really still inside, I said, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm actually only going to be willing to make money in a way that brings me joy. If it's
Yeah.
not a process of joyful creation, then I'm actually not interested in whatever that's going to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so boom, now all the fear comes up. What if the things don't work out? What are the other revenue streams you have? What if those go away? Shouldn't you constantly having to try to like make everything work all the time? And I said, okay, I understand that this fear is here, right? Just like they would
Yeah.
teach you in Denmark, right? Recognize the
Yes.
fear, observe it, and then say, great, well, let me see if I can get that to still. And once I can get it to still, then I'll start to take actions that are going to
Hmm.
be in alignment with me only producing money in the way that I find as a
Yeah.
joyful creation of that. What I found is by doing it that way, being okay with the fear, the results of that were 10 times or 100 times better than I ever would have achieved had I constantly been chasing a bunch of things driven from the fear.
Yeah. I used to have a strap line, double your business, right? And people don't believe it. But once you can get what you're talking about, you get people there, just in the present moment, dealing with what's actually happening, then you become a genius because you can see it. You can see, you're not interacting with your own. You're not like over here, it's kind of peeking over there, and then you're really over here. No, you're actually over here with what's going on.
I mean, how much smarter do you have to be, if smarter at all? If the difference is that you got Einstein to your right, but he's having to look at an image with a bunch of static all over it. That's
Mm,
distorted.
yeah.
Whereas how much do you even have to be smart if you can just see clearly? I think that a lot of the times these limitations that we put on ourselves are all built from the context of saying everybody is playing a game where they're dealing with a bunch of static. And the people that have been able to remove the static from them are the ones that are able to go from being great to being truly legendary. Like I see it listening to speeches from Kobe Bryant. I hear
Mm,
it all the time when I read anything that has to do with anything Einstein ever wrote about like
yes.
his life experience and what he was creating. It's actually all around us all the time. All the voices are here from sports to scientists to business people, that there's a stratosphere of these legends that are doing this. And I'm no legend, right? I'm still trying to figure this out to a large
Well,
extent.
I
But
was going to say, if you can see what they're saying because you're experiencing it, or you've experienced it, or you've got access to experiencing it yourself, it's obvious. But if you can't, the human beings are like, well, what's he talking about? Why is he saying that? But I don't understand that. But what's this? I mean, they're in that,
yeah.
not just out here with what's going on.
Yeah, it's a, and that's why I had decided I had to found my nonprofit Royal Life, is to try to help teach other people about, well, how do you do that thing?
Mm,
Like sounds great. How do you actually control mind and emotions, right? And then a lot of people say, "Oh, my mind goes crazy if I ever try to sit down to do a meditation or whatnot." I think it's really sad because what it actually means is all the meditation instruction that's out there must be wrong, and that it's actually from my studies, it actually is it's impossible not to be able to meditate actually. So
mm,
the questions are is about what is the approach and the technique. And I think this is where it helps to have a really good teacher. There's a lot of good really teachers out there, and I teach people how to do that particular skill set. inside of my retreats that I host through Royal Life. And then
Yeah.
after we learn that skill set, we then start the process of which might line up with Will with what you teach, which is um, once we can learn how to do that, stilling the mind and the emotions, then we should end up with having clarity, stillness and clarity about whatever it is we want to achieve next in life. And then we know from Western thinking, there's nothing stronger than systems, processes, and teams that help leverage inside of like a 3D creation. And so life
Mm,
actually eventually becomes really understood to be this very simplistic process. You understand the buckets of your life. I have a financial life, a romantic life, a social friends life, a fun and adventure part of my life. I have all these buckets. My what I want to achieve in those buckets is simply achieved by going into the deepest truth and understanding, my deepest purpose I can find inside of myself, which is achieved by stilling the mind and the emotions. That
mm.
helps me decide what is it that I want to experience in that bucket of my life. And then we use our basic entrepreneurial skills of systems, processes, and teams to help drive a creation that's leveraged through our time. And if you just repeat this cycle, you will inevitably have the best life you could possibly have. There will be no possible better life that you could achieve.
So that said, now looking at what you're dealing with currently, I think you said, I don't know if you said so far in the interview, you told me just before we started, you're starting a third company now, or a new company. Is that right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
say a little bit about the company, and then I'll ask you my question.
Other companies that I've started, they're all in the finance world. So it's
Yes.
a law firm that does all
Yep.
the stuff to asset protection, estate planning, a tax firm, which is strategic tax advice combined with investment profiling. I also
Yep.
have like an investment mastermind that pulls together syndication deals that are tax leverage syndications. And this is all to take care of one bucket of my life, which was the money bucket of how do I
Yeah.
automate money, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially what when I was talking earlier about building the family office. Royal Life is actually my new venture to start to say, well, what happens for us after we figure out money? My own experience with it is in two ways. One, once you become free of money, life can actually become super crippling. The
Mm.
desire and the pursuit of money itself is your purpose. If that's true for you,
Yes.
and you can know it's true for you in a lot of ways because
Yes.
you go on vacation for more than 2 weeks, you'll say, I
Yes.
don't actually like being on vacation anymore. I said, well, imagine if you didn't have to work for money anymore and you thought you were going to go on perpetual vacation. This is what happens to people in retirement,
And they
right? And
die.
that's when it becomes present and they die, right? I
Yeah.
also will see this with my clients that they'll come in and I'll say, hey, with you, what you have right now, we reposition your portfolio, you're retired within a week. And they freak out quietly.
Mm.
Internally, they freak out. And
Yeah.
you can tell they freak out because their mind starts grabbing for all kinds of reasons of why the thing they always wanted to transition away from with their job, they are now fighting to stay in the process of their
Yeah.
job. And it
Yeah.
takes them about a year to 2 years to be able to detox and shift out of that in most all cases, even though they'll say it's the number one thing they want to have change in their life,
Yeah.
right? So Royal Life is trying to solve those problems of saying, hey, let's get ahead of this by doing the small things now to start building this other life infrastructure
Mm.
that will then, when we reach our financial freedom pieces and our abilities there, we'll already have a new infrastructure to plop into that gives us a steering wheel for life. So we're not just cast out into the wild of like, oh, I have no structure, I have no purpose. What the heck do I do now? And Royal
Mm.
Life solves that problem.
It's great. I read a book a long time ago called The Culture Code. It was because I was going to America, and it's a marketing book, but it was explaining the in the background contexts. So in America, it may be in other countries, but in America, working is related to self-worth. That's why people work, because the more they work, the more they have the experience of being worth something, you know. Then you
Mm.
take that away from them, it's like, well, I'm useless. Now what? They really are like a fish out of water. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it
truly, right?
speaks to what you're saying.
And how much does work really give a lot of people, right? For a lot of times, it's their major social outlet,
Yeah,
right? It's the thing that provides them structure to their day. I work out and I eat breakfast before I go to work. I have a lunch packed that's on diet for after during work.
yeah,
I have an after work activity. Like everything is positioned around a rhythm for like
mm,
what work is.
yeah,
So once that structure evaporates, what you find is that people actually don't keep all of the same rhythms.
Right.
All the rhythms of our lives are interdependent. And if they're created from an external push on us,
Yes.
then when that external push called like my 9 to 5 job goes away, you'll find yourself being totally lost in life. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can actually
No.
take the time to like come
Yes.
back and then recreate from internally, and that way you're always in control. You're never in a place where life can actually throw you that big of a curveball. Everything becomes much more still, equanimous.
Yes. Well, that sounds fantastic. How would people get hold of you? How would they say, hey, Scott, I'm interested in what you're talking about here, and I can see
Sure.
I'm kind of almost there, but then, I'm like holding on to working. I don't know what else to do. I don't want to do
Yeah.
anything, but after 2 weeks, I'm going to be bored crazy.
The program is set up to be able to help just by implementing like this program. It'll give you more peace, more fulfillment, more purpose, but it'll also help you make money. If your goal is still to make more money, it will help you make more money. It'll help you rise higher in your career. All things will become better. I know that's like a wild thing to say, but
Yep.
with more time, I'd be able to explain to you the mechanics of why. But it's undeniably true that that's the result of it. Um, from we see historically. And really, for everybody that might be interested right now, the best thing to do is just email me at scott@royallegalsolutions.com. We have a website that's like up and coming
Yep.
for this. It's only been things I've offered internally to my clients at Royal Legal Solutions
Yeah.
that have been going through that transition and needed extra support. And I've only done that just out of a place of generosity of being able to help some other people like through that journey. So as we get a website together, we'll have, all the great VSLs and testimonial videos and all of that stuff there. But just email me at scott@royallegalsolutions.com if this is something that sparks your interest, or if it's something that you say, this is absolutely crazy, there's no way this could work. Because I bet that you're just on the cusp of being able to find a breakthrough.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Great, great, great. All right. Well, you've not written a book yet, right?
I have one coming out soon. It's
Oh,
called,
there you go. There you go. I
it's
just spent
called Royal
14
Wealth.
months. Yeah, I
Yeah.
spent 14 months writing my one, getting it to be a book that makes a real difference for people. I can hear, you're in the same game. So come on, get your book out. It's a different,
Mine
it's
was
more
18 months
financial.
in process, and then we're getting it. But I don't have nearly as good of a launch plan as you will. You're a much better business person when it comes to all that than I am. But I'm impressed by your work, man. It's great stuff. I can't wait to read your book.
All right, awesome. Thank you for being on Free to Lead, Scott.
Thank you, Will.